Microdose, yeah, Microdose. Hosted by Kush and Robyn Seto. Talking the talk, cause they got things for you to know. Let's go party with Miss Robyn in the games on Cameo. Yeah, Microdose, Microdose, dose. Microdose, Microdose, dose. Microdose, Microdose, dose. Microdose, Microdose, dose. What gets this next? Go and take a guess. No matter who it is, every episode's the best. Every episode's the best. Every episode's the best. If you disagree, you're crazy, simple as chess. Microdose, 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 yeah, microdose.
What's good, y'all? Kush Hayes here, coming to you, the 68th edition of the Microdose. How you doing, guys? What's new? What's good? Have you had your vax yet? Are you one of the lucky ones like me that just kind of shook it off and are moving on, or are you sick as a dog right now? I hope it's one and not the other. With me, as always, Robyn Seto. Miss Robyn, if you're nasty, how you doing tonight, kid?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, we have a good game in store tonight. What can we look forward to?
Some goodies, some good uns.
Some good uns?
Fun. I hope it's fun. I think it's fun. I think it will be interesting. I think we'll be in for some fun.
All right.
Not to give anything away too early, but yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, we got a guest tonight, Robyn. Without further ado, let me introduce him. He's a rock star. He's a pro wrestler. He's a published author. He's here to promote his third book tonight, The Murders That Made Us: How Vigilantes, Hoodlums, Mob Bosses, Serial Killers, and Cult Leaders Built the Bay Area. Please welcome Bob Calhoun. Bob,
hey,
how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. It's I think this is going to be just, it's funny. I put out the murder book, The Murders That Made Us, which gets me a whole different audience, true crime people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've done a lot of podcasts about my first book, my incredibly strange wrestling book, Beer, Blood, and Cornmeal. It's created interest in my back catalog going back to my incredibly strange wrestling days. So
has there been a tick in sales for the previous two books now?
Book sales are weird. You get those numbers way later, but I just know that, I have had people talking to me, there's a weird thing. If I'm doing I've done a couple of live things where I have sold the murder book and dudes will come up and go, "Hey, do you have the wrestling book?" It's I haven't been set up at a convention with a table where I have all my books, but it's there will be guys that buy the murder book for their wives, or that's what they say.
Dig.
But then they want to also buy the wrestling book for themselves. There's been a kind of gender thing going on with the two books. So I need to bring at least one copy of Beer, Blood, and Cornmeal, the incredibly strange wrestling, the punk wrestling memoir, with me anytime I'm selling the Murders That Made Us, because it seems there's always a guy that wants to pick up both books. And so far I've been denying them, but my crackerjack marketing research is showing that I could sell two books to a single household.
There you go. Why not two? Make it a combo set. Knock off $5. Give them a little autograph. It's a win all around. Am I right?
A sign for the wife on one. And it's funny because the murder book is to me, I think I don't drop F-bombs on every other page. I think there might be only 2 or 3 F-bombs in the whole murder book. But it's 170 years of the San Francisco history through crime. And most of them are murders.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but most of them. And so there's just really profane, horrible things happening on almost every page of Murders That Made Us.
Mm-hmm.
Where incredibly strange wrestling, Beer, Blood, and Cornmeal, I'm more profane in my language, but it's just a funny, weird romp through this 7 years of my life in this weird punk wrestling show that happened in South of Market and then later the Fillmore and on, in the late 90s to the mid 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Incredibly strange wrestling.
I don't think it's as profane.
Had a national tour at one point, did it not?
We did 2 and 1 of Europe. Before I was involved in it, in 95, they did Lollapalooza, and then we did Warped Tour in 2001 before 9/11. So there's that kind of sea change in the book where you go from the kind of Clinton 90s into the War on Terror and the Bush years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did a tour of Europe in 2003, deconstruction tour. And that was really, we were flogging the dead horse by then. I mean, everybody kind of hated each other. It was like the band broke up, but still did one more tour, you know, and it was Europe. I don't think I would have gone on that last tour if it was, you know, another US tour.
Seems like it would have been a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and it was something that was always in the works. You know how you're in entertainment and you've been around entertainment, that there'll be like something that somebody will talk about for years and you think they're kind of BSing you. But then it just takes that long for that Europe tour. It took that long for that Europe tour to happen. Audra, the promoter, was always talking to people about it, trying to make it happen. And then by the time it happens, you no longer really want it, but you still have to take it. You know, it's Europe, you know, kind of miserable. Europe, you know, when I got back, people asked, how was it? I'm like, Europe was great. The tour was lousy, but Europe was fine. You know?
The Murders That Made Us, as you said, features 170 years of Bay Area history of murders, 29 chapters, over 80 stories. I'm only about 2/3 through the way here. I'm just outside Mayor Moscone's murder. But was there something that got left on the floor? Was there something that you wish you could have put more details to, but you just kept hitting brick walls?
Wow, that's actually a really good question, because it's true. Like, there's a series of murders there's somebody that is actually angry at me on Amazon for not having this, but there was a series of murders by like militant Black Muslims in the early 70s or mid 70s called the Zebra Murders. And they even shot Art Agnos, who later became mayor. And it's not that I omitted it for any kind of political correctness or anything anybody might think. It was just, I needed to bring what I felt was as good as my best writing in that book, and a couple of drafts, 2 or 3 drafts of it, and it just wasn't coming together. Yeah, and then I was also just burnt out. I mean, it's like depressing stuff when you're just kind of writing it. I was doing the column for the weekly for a bunch of years of true crime, and that's where most of this stuff comes from, or the earlier drafts of them. But I had to add a bunch of stuff to make the concept of the book work, which it's this history through crime. So the Zebra Killers ended up like not happening. There's some earlier stuff that, like, there's a duel in Daly City in like the 1850s or the 1850s between Senator Broderick, David Broderick. He's a character earlier in the book, but I don't really show how he ends. And he fights this Southerner, Terry, a Supreme Court justice. They get in a duel over like whether California should be a free or a slave state. And it's so I kind of see Broderick as the quintessential San Francisco liberal. He was like crooked as hell. I mean, he got elected through like false bottom ballot boxes and rigged elections and had all these kinds of shenanigans going on. But in the end, he dies fighting to keep California a free state, or in a dispute over that. So it's like his heart was in the right place when it counted. He put up or shut up over the right issue, but you know, he was still a crooked guy for most of his life. So that was one I really, really wished that I got into the book and just didn't. And there's a few others, and there's just other stuff. A lot of my Zodiac Killer writing was very situational, meaning that I was like responding to like them finding the Golden State Killer and writing about DNA and what was going on with these other cases. And they just kind of read too much like news stories. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, it looks like an old news article, where a lot of Murders That Made Us, I was writing them. They aren't written as a typical newspaper story. You know, they kind of begin halfway through, or, you know, they're written in a more dynamic way than the typical news story, where a lot of my Zodiac stuff was like responding to other current events. And it was very, very it just didn't fit the book.
Was there not enough time to get the new Zodiac information in? I think it was maybe less than 6 months ago. They said like, we've cracked the letters 40 years later.
Yeah. If the cipher said something really crazy and told us who the Zodiac Killer was, I'd have regrets about that, or I would have done an edit of it. I was doing some last minute edits on the book up until the very last moment, where it couldn't be processed in time for printing. It didn't say anything that Zodiac, it just said the kind of Zodiac mishmash he always says. So, I mean, if it was something that groundbreaking, I would have gotten it in there, but it was just like, okay, It's just more, slaves in the afterlife. You can't catch me. It's not to belittle it. It was still an achievement, and it's a mystery solved. But I mean, like, Kamala Harris is now vice president, and she was district attorney of San Francisco. So I was like making those changes. Like, and I was even kind of on the fence before she was even chosen as VP. Like, do I need to somehow work her into the later chapters? And then once it's like she's going to be vice president, you have to write something with her in it, because she was the top law enforcement official in the city you're writing about. You cannot not have her. And, Gavin Newsom comes through, and Kimberly Guilfoyle, like, there's all these kinds of characters that are now these national figures, or at least statewide figures, but really national figures, that they are just kind of side characters, in these stories.
This is the third book. Does the process get easier? And what is the process on collecting the 80 plus stories that you do have? And then from the moment you have your first draft, how many more drafts do you have to do after that? Like, are you just cranking it out, or just banging your head against the wall? Like,
this book's modular, so it was a little bit easier than something like Beer, Blood, and Cornmeal. Even Shattering Conventions was modular too, and some of those stories were reworked from other pieces. But this book was more modular than them, so it's not like I'm having to. The consistency issues aren't the same. There were certain things, like I started the Dan White stuff that you're just about to read. I think I started that in April 2019. I had the middle of it, which is the White Night riots, the riots that happened after he got light manslaughter sentence. Basically, the whole gay community came out and tore apart City Hall that night. So I had a story on that, and then I had to have the middle around him, and it's always very depressing, and it's kind of been written about before, so I had to come at it from a different way. But I started that in April 2019, and I don't think I finished. I got a draft. I just kept working on that off and on, and wrote so many drafts of it until, my deadline was in May 2020. I think I didn't finish that until March 2020. So I mean, I wasn't writing it the whole time, but I kept on like, this still isn't right, coming back to it. Some of the Patty Hearst stuff, like the stuff where she's in the closet, where the Sudanese Liberation Army keeps her in that closet again in Daly City. And just like, I had like drafts of that thing that were almost as long as a book themselves, and then just trying to find the piece of that. That's why the Zebra Killers didn't end up in it, is I just didn't have that was going to take that kind of effort. Some of these other stories, they're just little stories, and I mean, still very tragic and horrible. But I would just read them and go, okay, this thing about the guy, the carnation grower that was found behind the movie theater off Market Street. That one was, a lot of them were just like, okay. But a lot of them were like, they had touch-ups. I think the Huey Newton one I kept rewriting. Charles Sullivan, the owner of the Fillmore, was added. And that took a little bit of work. But yeah, the process on that, it's different. For this, it was almost different on every story.
One of my favorite subjects is Fox Plaza and the former Fox Theater. Now, for those not familiar with it, tragedy surrounds this one location. Lots of suicide attempts, lots of suicide successes, or just other grisly murders happen here. And the lore in San Francisco is the Church of Satan leader, Anton LaVey, he put a curse on the building or on the location. And so but you dig in deeper, like, well, no, on this date, this thing happened, and on this date, this other horrible thing happened, 40, 50 years before Anton LaVey even stepped foot into the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah. The Fox Theater itself kind of, was cursed, or the William Fox, the owner of Fox Studios, who built it, was like in a car wreck right around the time the theater was open. And, people in the theater, it had an elevator. It was such a huge movie theater that, people stepped into the elevator shaft, but the elevator wasn't there and fell to their deaths. It's just a weird place. And it got weirder after Fox Plaza, because even when they were building the building, like, there was a construction accident where like a crane or girders crushed some workers. It just was like the history of horrible things happening in that ugly building on, Market and 8th or 9th. It's just unreal. I mean, Anton LaVey or no, but I mean, the story goes that he was so upset that they tore down the Fox Theater where he played organ sometimes, and he was a very good keyboard player, a very good organ player, that he put a curse on it. He put a hex on the building. And yeah, it's a lot of suicides there. Something that didn't make it into the book that I kind of found out a little too late was that the Doodler, the gay serial killer, was, you know, there were incidents there, like the people that wouldn't later, because they didn't want to out themselves in the 70s, that they were gay. Because, I mean, it was a much more, you know, costly thing to them back then. You know, these businessmen that got away from the Doodler, you know, I guess his apartment was in Fox Plaza. So you have according to Hoyle, genuine San Francisco serial killer living there. There was a guy who opened up fire. There was a sniper incident there, like a kind of mass shooting where a guy just started sniping from the building. You know, just even other stuff. Like there was like a fire, somebody, you know, they had a lit cigarette and, you know, caught some paper on fire. So the fire truck was speeding there and it jumped over a center divider and hit some people waiting for a minibus. It's just like, how we've left that building up, you know, it's just even stuff around the building is somehow it's cursed, whether it's Anton LaVey or not, or just bad design or whatever. Just somehow the worst things happen surrounding that building.
Now, did you find any other similar addresses? Like, I mean, there's only so much space, like there's only so many days in a year, but like were there other, did the hot dog stand just above the Montgomery Street station, like does someone get stabbed there every 8th day or something? Like,
nothing was quite like Fox Plaza. And this is at the time I had Nexus, which is a pretty deep newspaper database, and I have newspapers.com, and I was looking for, there was something like one of these other apartment buildings there, one of those big kind of high-rise apartment buildings, like some dean from UC Santa Cruz, I think, died there. Like there was another building that had some stuff, but it wasn't like, it was like just one incident, one or two terrible incidents. It wasn't like just, you could just search back to the 60s and just find like just horrible things happening there referencing that building. Like nothing else had quite that, nothing even close, really, I don't think. You know, maybe the Golden Gate Bridge, you know, with the people that jumped off it, but you know, Fox Plaza just had all these kind of, there's a suicide, like I said, the Doodler lived there, and a mass shooting and do fire truck accidents and just on and on and on. It's
just a weird
like
magnet for negative energy.
Yeah, and it also is blamed for making that wind tunnel effect down certain areas of Market Street. You know, it's just how it's positioned, and it also looks like it. I describe it as looking like an air filter from a mid-90s Toyota, and that's what you know, because I used to have a mid-90s Toyota, and that's whenever I change the air filter, I'm like, this looks like the Fox Plaza apartments, you know.
Robyn is from Sacramento, so she doesn't really know what we're talking about. Robyn, and if you're in this one area of downtown right around City Hall, but by the Fox Plaza, you could be walking, it'd be a nice, bright, sunny day, catching all the warm sunshine, and then you turn a corner, and all of a sudden you were literally walking against the wind. It is the strangest, it's not a thing that happens 3 blocks north or south. It's just this one area.
Yeah, it's like the Bermuda Triangle of San Francisco.
It totally is. It's kind of ugly. It's not as picturesque as the Bermuda Triangle, but yeah. I mean, if you told me, you know, the other place that I do write about that has that kind of history really is the zoo.
Oh,
the San Francisco Zoo. I mean, and it's unfortunately usually the victims are animals somehow, and that could be bad zoo management. But there was this thing in the 30s where somebody poisoned an orangutan, and I assume the zoo was just more open and people could just go, you know, it's these depressing cages that people could walk up to. And like, it just started like the primate handler died of a heart attack or died of sadness. And then other great apes that were there just kind of died all around the same time. It was just this really depressing thing. But then you look at the history of just mishaps at the zoo. I mean, there could be a whole book, I think, about San Francisco Zoo as well. So I guess the zoo would be the other place. There's this kooky amusement park, or was, up through the 70s, called Playland at the Beach.
Yeah.
Orson Welles shot Lady from Shanghai there, which is a noir, and it's a Like a Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon, it's got one of those finales in a fun house with the fun house mirrors and a shootout, and and it's like probably the movie that kind of set that template for that. But I so wanted there to be some weird, I mean, this is the morbid thing when you're writing this stuff, is you're going through newspaper databases and microfilm, and I so wanted there to be some kind of weird crime story at Playland at the beach. And it doesn't mean that there isn't, but I couldn't find it because I just wanted to write about Playland at the beach.
Now, speaking about just grisly and rough and just murder, and what are you doing for your mental wellness during all this? Are you talking to therapists? Are you just looking at 30 minutes of YouTube kitten videos?
Yeah, I try not to watch like other true crime stuff. I kind of need to. If I'm going to try to pitch this book as a series, I kind of need to know what's on Netflix. So I watch a little bit of it. But people really, when they talk to me about the book, they want to talk to me about whatever it is they're watching on streaming or cable. And it's just like, yeah, I can't, I kind of had enough. So yeah, we have 2 kittens right now. We caught some kittens in our backyard just last week. And we're hoping to their names are Pepper and Smokey, boy and a girl. They're pushing 8 weeks now, 7 weeks. And we're hoping to adopt them. So I can just go into my living room right now and see kittens romping around. So that's helped. But yeah, I kind of want to do the revised expanded edition and podcasts and stuff, but I do have to have a narrow focus. When I was working on these stories, when I was doing this stuff all the time, I really only watched like true crime stuff if it was like pertinent to my research. John Wayne Gacy was in Chicago. I can't care about it because I just don't need John Wayne Gacy in my life when I have to write about Richard Ramirez and Jim Jones.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Are there thoughts for a new book?
Not really yet. I'm still dealing with this and still hoping to get this into something else. I mean, I did the Incredibly Strange Wrestling book and I lived that. And then I did Shattering Conventions, which was me just going to a bunch of different conventions and trade shows. So I've done kind of wildly different things, but they're all, whatever it is, it's probably going to be local because there's a lot of the Cow Palace and Shattering Conventions. So I end up kind of chronicling the Bay Area no matter what I do, even if I am going to San Diego Comic-Con and, a Twilight convention in Oregon, in Portland, even if I am going outside the Bay Area, I'm still coming back. So whatever it is, I don't know if it's going to be crime or what. I have a few ideas, but nothing's really gelled yet.
Speaking about the conventions, what was the weirdest convention you covered in or out of the book?
Okay, yeah, because I spun it off as a kind of podcast series for this magazine Meetings Today, which is just a trade magazine, not podcast, like a video, like a YouTube series with a column. Like I did the quirky column on the last page. If you've ever looked at trade magazines about anything, there'll be like a funny thing, a 1-page funny thing, and that was me for a while with them. Weirdest convention. They all get to have a certain sameness to them. I did the 2 BronyCons. I was really running out of ideas after I'm like coming back to the BronyCon. I did get in a polar bear suit. Ooh. This is out of the book. I did some of the best stuff after the book. I did get in a polar bear suit and went through the furry parade at Further Confusion in San Jose. So I don't want to think about what went on in that polar bear suit before I went in it. It was just, but the furries and bronies were always really welcoming to me, but there was this we were in this brony after party and it's just at the Burlingame Hyatt Regency. And, me and the camera guy, Corey Chalky, and we were there in this there were all these party rooms. They have these party rooms at that place because I guess it's cheaper. I've been, the Klingon bar was there. So the Klingons set up a bar at these various conventions in the Bay Area. And it'll be in a conference room of the hotel the convention is in. And they're just serving Klingon blood wine. And it's just these gross concoctions of rum and punch and whatever else, but they're all in their Klingon outfits and they're kind of like Klingon insult comics. That was I always got way too drunk at those things because they aren't really selling it. It's just tips. So you're just throwing 10 or 20 in their tip jar and they're just giving you booze and giving you the what for. But yeah, with the bronies, we were just sitting there and they were just kind of video. There was like a room full of bronies video chatting with other bronies that weren't there, but they were listening to the Stones.
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
and I'm like,
sure.
because, and they were like these kids, like they're like way younger than me. And I'm like, why are they listening to the Stones? It just didn't make sense. And then I got like that the next morning I woke up and I'm like, it's that Wild Horses song. I didn't hear it when I was there, but it was like, that's it. That was the gateway drug for bronies to get into the Stones.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
As a former promoter, I was trying to study any live events that were coming up. Like, what is outdrawing me? Why is it outdrawing me? What are they doing that I can adopt? And one thing that I found in New York at the time, we're talking 2007, 2008, 2009, someone put an entire convention together around the Saw franchise. And I think they were only up to like their 5th volume at that point.
Yeah. Those Saw guys, like the guys really into Saw, they see a lot in those movies. And, you know, I mean, I've been at horror conventions and things and just kind of listening to people because
are they on a different level? Like, do they make the Hellraiser guy go, I don't know about this one?
Yeah, the Hellraiser guy is kind of more self-assured because it's based on like, you know, Clive Barker stuff and it's got all that S&M kink in it, where Saw is just, yeah. I don't Hellraiser has like a kind of more of a charm to it, I guess. But yeah, those Saw guys are pretty fanatical. I mean, and it's come back again and it's like, what, Chris Rock is in it? Who else is in that?
Chris Rock, Sam Jackson's in it for a cup of coffee. You know what? There's a very cool police thriller in it, and then it turns into a Saw film. For what it is, it's all right. But I would wait for Netflix or Prime or anything else. The Murders That Made Us, Bob Calhoun's his 3rd book. You can get that from ECW Press. It's available on Amazon, paperback, ebook, audiobook, and audible.com, as well as ecwpress.com. 336 informative pages, 29 fantastic chapters. Bob, I'm hearing some music. That means it's time for the Robyn Seto cameo party. Robyn Seto cameo party. Robyn, how you doing tonight?
Well, I'm so good. I have a game for us tonight.
That sounds exciting.
Hooray, hooray. Yes, you know, it's my party where I go to Cameo and I make a list of celebrities for our guest to go up against our host Kush to guess the price of each cameo. Try to get as close as you can without going over the price. And tonight's prize is, I don't know, a Coca-Cola hat with razor blades on it.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. So we flipped a coin and it came up Bob. So you get to go first in each round this game.
Okay, I'm going to run down, you know, Bob Calhoun. You're our next contestant on The Price is Right.
Outstanding.
Yay. All right. First on our list tonight, we have John and Jamie from the True Crime Cast.
Okay.
Now, I have not listened to these gentlemen, but they have 231 episodes currently available. Sorry for the free plug. They have a mix of 30 to 40-minute episodes, plus these sort of easy to-go episodes that are about under 10 minutes. They talk about true crime, they lay down the facts, and they talk about their own professional speculation about what might have really happened.
So they're podcasters.
Yeah, they're just a couple of dudes who are interested in true crime and like to talk about it.
I'm going to say $10.
$10.
$10. That's probably a good bet. This is the first I've ever heard of them. No, the 230 episodes. That's pretty fantastic. But that's got to be just like very depressing content. Having said that, I'm sure they have a pretty big fan base, but I'm going to go $25.
Kush's guess, 25. Well, John and Jamie are charging $16.
What?
So,
Wow.
point for our guest, Bob.
Means they're charging tax too.
All right. Well, next on our list is a gentleman named Damian Echols.
Who?
Damian Echols. Now, this man is probably not super familiar to you, but he is a death row survivor.
Oh, dear.
In 1993, at age 18, he was arrested for the murder of 3 8-year-old boys along with 2 other teenage boys. They were known as the West Memphis Three, and the killings were known as the Robin Hood Hills murders. He was interested in satanic rituals and was otherwise kind of disturbed, so they kind of pinned him for the crime. He served time on death row from 1994 to 2011 when DNA technology had improved, and the judge wanted to throw the book at him, so they didn't let him out. But when the judge retired, each of the boys involved filed Alford pleas, which basically means you get to admit there's enough evidence to convict you as guilty, but maintain your innocence.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, after serving 18 years in prison, he's gotten into magic, Buddhism, and has been a featured artist, musician, and poet. So there you go.
You know, the West Memphis Three, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were a big cause celeb for a while. They were like a Free the West Memphis Three, and they, there were a lot of like internet stuff, and there's been a documentary. I'm gonna go $40 on him. I think there's just was enough interest for long enough in them, and they beat the case. It was all just based on circumstantial evidence. It was based on there was no real smoking gun or murder weapon. It was all just a lot of satanic panic, and I mean, you're just always going to find goth or metal kids that look that part in any community, since there have been goth and metal kids. So yeah, what did I say? $40?
Yeah.
40. I'm going with 40 on him. I think there was enough interest and enough that the name and everything else. I think I'm going to go 40.
I got very excited about hearing magic, and then you brought in Satanism, and then just went, oh, just wrong magic. So I don't know anything about this gentleman other than his bio that you just ran down, but I think he's going to be cute about it. So I'm really debating about whether or not to add a 0 to this number. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just say $66.60 is his cameo price.
Well, he's charging a humble $25 for him. So you got to wash here. Bob's still ahead.
We went over. We both went over.
Little goose egg. Little goose egg.
It's okay. There's 3 left, and next on our list is Eddie Spaghetti of the Super Suckers. He is the bassist and singer of the cow punk band The Super Suckers, and a cancer survivor.
Hey, far out.
It also played Incredibly Strange Wrestling, the Super Suckers.
Oh, well, maybe that's why he got on the list.
Yeah. Kind of a really huge band at that time, that kind of 97 to 2002 time period. A big band in that scene. How about 35?
35.
I'm going to say 50.
50. Well, he's charging exactly $50. So, point for our host.
You get the $100 out of the pocket if it's 80s Price is Right. Bob Barker had women reach into his coat pocket to get $100 when they were right on the nose.
Yeah.
I don't think Drew Carey is doing that. I don't think that gimmick is.
I don't think it would be as endearing. All right. Well, 4 up on our list. We have 2 left, and we're all tied. Aaron. We have Aaron Abeta, El Jefe from NoFX. Also played at Incredibly Strange Wrestling.
Also, yeah. Let's see. Eddie Spaghetti was like the front guy. I mean, he's the only guy that I can remember by name from Super Suckers. I'm going to go back to $35 on him because it's not Fat Mike, who I think would charge 100. You know, Fat Mike would charge anywhere from 50 to 100, but I'm going to go $35 on this guy.
Nah.
I'm gonna say he's leaning into his cult status. So I'm gonna just say a flat hundo.
Oh. Wow, as it just so happens, he is charging a flat hundo.
What?
Oh, wow.
Oh my god! This must be how the Washington Generals feel. This is great.
Yeah, you're slaughtering me now. You know, I think you've kind of got it won unless I could tie on the next one.
Next one's for all the marbles. How about that? This is
it is kind of where we want it with it. Yeah, it's totally where we want it.
All right, well, this last one is a wild card. Mr. Jaleel White. Mr. Jaleel White, also known as Bid-Eyed Urkel, and apparently does a mean Muhammad Ali impression. Also,
his Ali is
Sonic
pretty
the Hedgehog.
fantastic.
In the 90s, he was Sonic the Hedgehog, and he did 7th place in Dancing with the Stars season 14. And he's doing this for charity. This is the proceeds from the sales of this cameo goes to the LA Dream Center, which is a community outreach.
Dancing with the Stars, Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm gonna go $100 on him.
I think that's a strong bet. That's a good strong bet. I think Jaleel White is uncredited for a lot of things. He's underrated. Again, does a mean Muhammad Ali impression. Someone should do a Muhammad Ali project and book Jaleel White in it. I think he's got that Urkel status still, just going hard. So I'm gonna say he's doing it for charity. $250 talking to Jaleel White.
Oh, he's charging $169 for a cameo for charity.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, it looks like Bob wins this game.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Robyn Seto's Cameo Party.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It was looking a little neck and neck there, but down to the wire, yeah.
And then we both scratched on the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably not that this might have been a different game, but
I really underestimated NoFX too, because I mean, we did ISW did a lot of shows with them, and you always liked to, they were cool. And Fat Mike was always nice to everybody, so you like to do the shows. But there were just those fans were just like they would just stare at the stage while the wrestling was going on, looking at you. And I'm on stage. By that time, I'm mostly announcing with Alan Bolte. And they're just staring at you like blankly, like waiting for NoFX to appear.
Oh, geez.
It's like, just go and, and I would even start kind of doing like insult comic stuff at them after a while. Like, get away from me, kids. You bother me. Hey, kids, just go enjoy yourself for a little bit. They're going to play. It's going to happen. Just turn around and watch the fat guys jiggling in the ring for a while, but they just look at you, they just stare at you. They didn't even, I don't think it was any better when we'd have the opening bands and not the wrestling, because they just were there for that one thing. So I shouldn't have underestimated that anybody from that band could charge, $100 for this.
Speaking of wrestling, before we go here, you were Count Dante from the Black Dragon Fighting Society. It's one of my favorite stories in Beer, Blood, and Cornmeal. Could you give us a quick recap of that just for the fans? And then was there anything that followed after that?
Well, he was already dead, but when I pilfered his name, I mean, the internet was a new thing. So the idea that me playing in my band and then later wrestling under that name would like be known by people in Chicago, or it turns out Fall River, Massachusetts, was not something I probably wouldn't have done it if I was aware of the internet in a more profound way. So, I put up the website, and it's just a website for my persona, wrestling, band leader, all that. And then I start getting contacted by his heir apparent, like the guy who at least thought he was the holder of the Black Dragon Fighting Society in all its glory from the 70s. And, it just went back and forth with letters and stuff. But, the letters got weirder and more threatening over time. And he, but the whole Count Dante thing, like, it was weirder than I just knew him from these 70s comic ads when I was like 5 years old. And he looked like he had this crazy afro. And he promised that his book would teach you how to murder people with your bare hands in various martial arts ways. But it turns out that he was a part of the Purelator heist, which was like the biggest heist, cash heist in American criminal history until Lufthansa from Goodfellas.
Oh my goodness.
Like the Lufthansa heist that is in Goodfellas outdid it. But until that, it was this armored car company heist. It wasn't a heist of the armored car, but they broke into the safe of the armored car company or the cash room. And he also like tied blasting caps to like the rival dojo, and him and some friends of his in like 71, 72 stormed the Green Dragon dojo. And there was a melee that broke out. And this one judo guy who was friends of the original Count Dante got stabbed to death. Because they storm a dojo, and the dojo had all these martial arts weapons on the walls. So the other guys just pulled like, the spears and the sais and swords and things off the walls and started hacking away. Like just everything this guy did, and then a friend of mine, who's now a very good friend of mine, Floyd Webb, he's been working on a Count Dante documentary for like almost, God, we've been talking about this thing for another entertainment thing. It will happen, but it's been like, it'll be 20 years by the time it's happened. It's been 15 years he's been working on it. And those guys in Fall River tried to sue him to keep him from making the movie. They were trying to shake him down for money, and he actually got the Stanford University Fair Use Project at their law school represented Floyd in the lawsuit, and he had to go to Boston to federal court to deal with these guys. Sorry, I knocked the microphone, but yeah, it was just like, I think the story of the making of Floyd's movie is almost as fascinating as the story of, maybe not as fascinating as the crazy guy who tried to blow up rival dojos, rival karate schools, but I mean, it's still just crazy. So Dante, Floyd Webb once said to me, a day without Dante is a day without weird, because he calls me from time to time, goes, some old student of Dante's got a hold of me. And then it just always ends up with Floyd going down some weird Chicago martial arts or Fall River, Massachusetts, 1972 martial arts rabbit hole. It's just always weirder than anything I could imagine.
Bob Calhoun is the author. The Murders That Made Us is the book. You can get it from ECW Press, ecwpress.com, and Amazon. Again, paperback, ebook, audible.com. Audio CD is what I got here too. Bob, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
No, just Murders That Made Us, murdersthatmadeus.com, all one word. You can find me there. And no, just that's what I'm working on, Murders That Made Us. It just came out this month, so it's my new baby. And maybe I need to write the book about Floyd making the Dante documentary. And maybe that is my next book's under my nose. The whole film within a film thing about it.
There you go.
That might be it. But yeah, Murders That Made Us. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I love the cameo Price is Right. I watch Pluto Bob Barker Price is Right almost every day. So
Robyn Seto, you do some stuff here. What do you do?
Around here, I do a little thing called Polite Beer Expressions. It's a weekly written beer review of different craft brews. For this last week of May, we're going to wrap up IP May. I don't really like IPAs, but I found a couple that I do really like, so check those out. Those go up on Wednesdays at noon California time because I like to sleep in.
And if you are one of the lucky brewers that does get picked for a Robyn Seto polite beer expression, worst review she's given is a 4 out of 5. I do a bunch of stuff here. Kush and Kai, number 56. Jameel Hemphill is joining us, and we're going to be talking Limitless on the 16th. Speaking about Jameel, he just dropped on May 26th. That just passed us. Sweet Science Cinema, number 3, $1 Million Baby. Him and I have a great talk about that we go about an hour plus. And then me and director Len Kabaczynski on the Kick-Ass Movie Podcast. June 30th, we'll be talking about The Perfect Weapon. For Bob Calhoun, I've been Kush Hayes.
I've been Robyn.
You've been you. Thank you much.
Microdose, 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 yeah, microdose.
From the BosNet family.
I did get in a polar bear suit
Ooh.